Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Refugee Matters series. Today's topic is refugee and immigrant queer diaspora, where we will discuss the LGBTQIA+ community, a community that is often more vulnerable in their search for safety with access to even fewer paths to protection. And with the rise in anti-trans legislation across the country, safety and belonging may feel more out of reach for queer people seeking refuge in the United States. So this year we #Welcome Pride by gathering community members for a conversation on what it means to be part of the queer immigrant diaspora, how we create belonging and safety within each of our communities. My name is Melissa Holguin Pineda. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the Language Access and Leadership Development Organizer with the National Partnership for New Americans. I'm thrilled to be joined by some amazing speakers today to join us in this very important conversation around our LGBTQ communities. So first is Andrea Montanez. She, her, ella is the Advocacy Director, LGBTQ Immigration Organizer at the Hope Community Center in Central Florida. She is a Latinx transgender woman from Colombia, a former asylum seeker, and currently an activist for immigration rights. We're also joined by Shadi Ismail. He, him, his is a member of Refuge America and a former gay Syrian refugee currently residing in Idaho. We're also joined by Candelario Saldana. He, him, his is an associate in Cadwallader, Wickersham, and Taft's Capital Markets Group in Charlotte. He represents investment banks and other financial institutions in secured commercial lending transactions, commercial mortgage-backed securitizations, and other asset-backed securitizations. Candelario is one of Cadwallader's Black and Latino Association immigrant clinic leaders. We're also joined by Omar Gutierrez. He, him, his is a DACA recipient and was inspired by the immigrant rights movement and so became involved with TIRC, Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. Omar's current role as program coordinator allows him to reach community members by providing tools and resources while also advocating for a more welcoming Tennessee. So to kick us off, I'm going to pass it over to Andrea. So Andrea, can you talk a little bit about your experience working in the intersection of LGBTQ+ justice and immigration justice?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much to be here. Yeah, I work for an organization right now. The name is Hot Community Center. Hot Community Center was created 50 years ago, in particular for the farm workers and the immigrants, with the years advance and all the support in different, because now it's like a community center. They're working for everybody, and now we're working more involving with the LGBT community. That's the reason my position coming here to support the LGBTQ immigrants, because we have that intersectionality that's also important. And here in Florida, we look into working together in that. Like, myself, I'm an immigrant, and also I'm part of the LGBT community, I'm part of the transgender community, so it's too many intersectionalities. We have the same struggles in different ways, and we can support each other. So as good example, in particular, this state is so crazy with all attacks, immigrants, LGBTQ everywhere. So we're fighting together with the immigration coalitions, and they coming to us to working for the LGBTQ, and we coming to them. So it's like doing a support. We are in the same struggle. So what I see now is like the only way we can sustain our rise, our happiness, our to support the immigrant dreams and also the LGBT community dreams are the same, because it's the same. It's humanity. So we're humans. The only way looking is to be alive, to kind of smile, to can be with everybody. And people see sometimes like the immigrants are the worst. We are criminals. We're coming from different parts. And if you are in the LGBT community, we are groomers or we are whatever. It's not true. So now we are together in this coalition. What I see working with this intersectionality is more people coming together to try to show where we are. We are in different rallies. Last week I was in the abortion rally too, and we were together because everything had to be. It's the same. It's human rights, and we have to. That intersectionality is so important, and that's like what I work in. Is in that is always try to bring communities together. Always I introduce who I am. I don't forget who I am. I cannot forget that I'm an immigrant. I'm part of the LGBTQ. I'm a human, and we have to keep fighting together. So. And it's coming, fighting and understand, because now we create here at Hope a new group is the LGBTQ immigrants in Florida, exclusive for to try to bring also a safe space for the LGBTQ immigrants, because they had struggles for being immigrants and a struggle for being LGBTQ. So we can working together in that, and that's exactly what we're working right now. In particular, in that area, is a lot of, and if we go to the totem, the transgender communities in the worst part, in particular, you are undocumented and you are trans, it's more difficulties than everybody. So we're working in that. We got example, I'm gonna go faster in this because it's too long. It's like, for example, we're working together also with the Consulado in Mexico here. It's the only consulate here doing the name change, and they give the passport and the birth certificate and the matricula consular to the Mexicans, transgender women or transgender male. So that's a really an advance, because they cannot come back to their own country to do the paper because they are undocumented, but they can have something to give you real name at the consulado. I think it's the only country doing right now. If it's another one, it's good to know it is more, but we have to fight it in this right. So that's, sorry, it's too complex, too long, but it's exactly what we do.
Yes, thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our next question, right? We've seen a lot of anti-trans, this wave, right, of anti-trans bills, and especially in recently states like Florida and other states, we've seen this rise of anti-LGBTQ plus bills. So can you speak more about what that rise, or how that rise of anti-trans legislation affects the way that queer and trans migrants and refugees view safety and belonging in the United States?
Oh yes, again, Florida is so difficult. Actually, we're working today in something is gonna possible happen tomorrow. That the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration has a meeting tomorrow that was organized by the governor of the state of Florida. And what they want is to deny the Medicaid coverage for the gender affirming care for all the transgender community. Not only the kids, also the adults. They try to spread the gender dysphoria is not really happen. It's not really a medical need. They don't want to cover surgery. They don't want to cover. So can you imagine? Because the more easy part when you come into the country as a queer immigrant or transgender person is Medicaid, because that's the more easy way. You cannot go to the private insurance because they are so expensive. But now with this rule, they want, I think this is a really difficult moment in Florida, but that don't give me to surrender. They give me more strong to we keep fighting in this, because they try to kill us with this. To be honest, that's only is a kill, is a death sentence. So that's when we have to work together. And again, can you imagine? Now, if they don't have Medicaid, at the detention center, we had a lot of transgender and queer people in prison, and we fighting a lot to they receive the hormones therapy and the medication. Can you imagine if that rule pass? They don't get nothing because the prison are covered with Medicaid. So this is one of the worst happen, and it's tomorrow. Actually, we're doing a campaign to try to avoid this. It's going to happen in Tallahassee tomorrow at 3 p.m. It's going to be a meeting, decide if they can deny the coverage for the gender affirming care. That's going to be really, and again, it's complete. They talking about all the terminology like we don't exist. We need that. So we don't choose to be what we are. That's what we are. So is in particular we're in awards. We also had the don't say gay or don't say LGBTQ that was passed here in Florida too, and that's changed a lot. Schools are so difficult now because people start to change. It's a difficult state. We had Orlando is a beautiful bubble with the LGBT community, unfortunately, because Pulse when they killed the 49, so they put us together. But now we're kind of afraid because it's looking like we are under attack completely. However, we have to continue. We have to get hope, and we have to be together in this because it's our lives. Nobody's going to change us. We don't go nowhere. So, and the immigrants is still coming, and we have to protect our queer trans immigrants in particular because, again, I don't know what is going to happen. Also, they approve that because private companies going to follow what Medicaid doing. So it's really scary because we need this our treatment. So it's sad, it's difficult, but as an activist, we cannot stop. We have to keep our voices and bring more people to support us. That's I see that in the community with the immigrants and an organization I work in. They coming with us too. Like we support the immigrants and the LGBTQ. We have to support in this moment. The worst part is happening with the trans and queer community. Is really a huge attack, and So that's exactly happened. It's more lows, but that one in particular, I have to remind that in particular because tomorrow is a big decision about Medicaid, and that's the worst part happening. This, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea, for bringing that up because especially if it's tomorrow, right? That's an urgent action that we can be aware of and know more about. But legislators, they can't legislate us out of existence. So I think that, to your point, right, we're going to continue fighting and advocating for our communities regardless. So thank you, Andrea. I now want to turn it over to Candelario, who's joining us today. So Candelario, can you speak more about the intersectionality and the resilience that is seen within our communities, and how do you see this translate for queer rights, migrant rights, and so forth?
Yeah, first of all, thanks to everyone for having me. And I hope that everyone that's watching at home, at work, wherever you're at, across the country, across the world, that you find peace and joy in these turbulent times, right? As Andrea talked about, our community is under attack, but at the same time, we're prouder than ever. And I think that's one of the things, I mean, we're here, right? We're resilient. And as you talked, it just reminded me about the Stonewall riots, right? Started on June 28th, 1969, 53 years later, we're here. And it started because the police raided the Stonewall Inn, and people were just tired of being harassed. They stood up, and I want to just make sure that I'm also mentioning that it was our Black trans women that stood up, right? And that talks about intersectionality right there, right? The fact that we're Black, we're brown, we're queer, we're trans. But at the same time, intersectionality, I think, is intersectionality of the issues that we face, right? Andrea brought up a good point here. Like we're talking about Medicaid, we're talking about abortion rights, we're talking about access to healthcare, access to detention issues, right? Like being able to be detained if we are detained in a place where the people that surround us look like us or identify as us, right? If we're trans females with females, if we're trans men with men. And then at the same time, we're young, we're old, we're everywhere in between, right? And that's one of the beauties about our community is that we are everything, and we like if we all just bundle together, like we can attack like so many issues, and I think we have, right? And that's where the resiliency part comes in. I mean, like our refugees that are already leaving their country. My mother, who migrated here 28 years ago to give me a better future, right, was resilient. She was willing to move across the world in order to give me a better future. People here on this program have left their home countries in order to seek a better place, and here they are fighting for the next person, right? Being resilient, being strong. And with a smile, and that's I think that's powerful, and it speaks volumes to who we are as a community. And I think it will carry us on for further years. Like we will not go away. DeSantis, we won't go into the closet again. Like anyone who wants to talk us out, like it wants to force us into a closet, into prison, like we will not die. We are here. Like we are not pedophiles. We are human beings just seeking to live our lives, right? And I think that our ancestors have done so much for us that we can do so much more in order to make sure that our youth have the same rights that we've. I mean, like think about like a girl now won't have abortion rights, right? Like just basic protection. Like how sad is that? But we as a community can definitely tackle these issues because they are issues that affect us. And I think that I'm going to just make a quick plug. It's like, make sure that you're like always making sure that you're paying attention to all of yourself, because you should be able to be Latino and gay in the same space. You should be able to be Black and trans at the same space. Like you should not have to hide one of your identities in a space that you belong in, right?
Yes, definitely. And that, I mean, this conversation on intersectionality, not only with the way that we advocate for each other, but the way that we show up for one another within community, right? Because at the end of the day, we can't rely fully on the government to protect us or to validate our existence, right? We do that for ourselves. Community does that for ourselves. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Another thing I wanted to bring up too is if you could speak more about what people can do to ensure that LGBTQ plus refugees and immigrants are given legal protections, right? We're seeing a lot of them getting taken away. So I'm curious if you can speak a little bit on what folks can do.
I think, I talked about the Stonewall riots, right? Like, let's show up when we're protesting. Like, let's actually like demand change, right? Hashtag queer the vote, as the National LGBTQ Task Force, for which I sit on the board for. Like, we are queering the vote. Our work right now, like this election is going to be super important, right? Like, we have a lot to lose if we lose either the House or the Senate. Like, it's going to be like, we think that right now is bad. Like, just imagine losing one of those like actual like pieces of government, right? Like, so much power like is on the lines right now, and so we have to show up to vote if we're able to. I know like a lot of times our immigrant community isn't allowed to vote because of they're not U.S. citizens. If they just have refugee status or DACA, or are just even legal permanent residents, right? They're not allowed to vote, but you can still show up, right? You can still go and like volunteer and do phone banking. You can still actually go to the protests. You can still participate in making sure that your friends that are able to vote actually show up to vote, right? You can still carpool people to like the actual polling places. Like, there's so much that you can actually do in order to effectuate change, even as an immigrant that is not allowed to vote. This election, I cannot emphasize enough, like, and turnout is historically lower in midterm elections, right? And in local elections, like here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we have an election that's actually started today, like early voting started today. If anyone is watching in North Carolina, go out and vote anywhere that has local elections, right? Because those people can actually effectuate large change. We're in North Carolina, we're actually seeing Senate Bill 101, which actually allows police and sheriffs and jail institutions to actually hold people for ICE. Like, this is not good for our community, right? Like, it's a show me your papers bill. Like, who has it historically like actually detained? Who has historically actually been forced to show their papers? People of color. And it's not okay. Like, and we need to stand up. We need to call our governor. We need to call our representatives and let them know that we can vote them out on the next election. Without actual voting, without actual showing up to places, we're not going to effectuate change. And I think that like we are like about to become the majority in this like country, right? And so like people are afraid, people are scared, but like what they need to realize is that we're not going away. Like, we are here and we're going to be queer and we're going to show up and demand the rights that we deserve, right? Like, it's like our God-given rights.
Yes, exactly. Y'all heard Candelario. Go out and vote if you can and show up, right? When your community needs you, you show up. So thank you, Candelario, so much for all of that insight. And I now want to turn it over to Shadi. So I want to ask, how has your gay identity influenced your refugee journey?
Oh my God. First of all, thank you to be part of this beautiful panel. Andrea, or forgive me if I didn't say your name right, Leardo. I don't know. Forgive me, it's hard. But
Got it.
really, really to sit here and just hear you guys just speaking from each one of you, like I felt you speaking already my voice in so many ways. As some of you know, I came as an immigrant to America in 2012 from Syria by status being gay. So actually, I didn't come here as the war kids, like running from the war, or actually my status to be able to come to the country was because I am gay. And oh God, I want to experience you just to see the outcome today in my heart, how I'm overwhelmed in so many ways, in joy actually, not like overwhelmed stress, but the joy. When I came 2012, I had no idea actually gay existed. Like the word gay existed in my whole world. Like I was almost been killed in so many ways and so many times. Just if I expressed that in myself. So gay word wasn't existed in my world. But when I came to America and I start like really live my life and being true who I am, I start knowing LGBTQAIS plus, like all this letter. So just see it like how expanded we become as community. From one letter was not existed. Like if you go back to the religion, it's this another story when I'm my dad Muslim, my mom Christian, and then on top of it I am gay. So it's it's a really interesting in so many ways. And actually, just I wanna to show up, like Andrea said. Corrado said about showing up. I really want to touch on it just a second because it really speaks to me so many ways. When I was a kid, all my life, I wished to see a gay story on TV, to see someone present me, to look like me, act like me, feel like me. In so many ways, they have everyone, but not like me. Later, I know, way years long after, I find out I was the kid who will make that to be happen for other kid like me. Like when I came to America from a story I shared on NPR and got grow in Idaho and led me to be fortunate and so grateful to be able to share a gay story on Apple TV. And actually, the sadly part is if system society, because all of it controlled by society for their own good, they block it from 11 country in Middle East, including Russia, because it is gay story. So Apple did make it for free, people can watch it. Like I felt myself, I felt I was winning because I made something different in a way, made them blacken it to that point how much was intention of them to blacken it. So I show up for it. And actually I cried so much that day when I saw the show because not just I saw my life flashed in front of me, I saw that kid who running to be in safety. And maybe I want to touch something very, very important we missed as LGBTQ people. We've forgotten how beautiful we are within because we always focus on getting approved by others to show who we are as true who we are. Forgive me, like transgender or anybody trying to just focus on, oh, please allow me to be me in so many ways. If it was a hospital, if it was a bill, if it was a surgery, if it was anyway expressing the love we are. And actually, I learned something very, very important, and I will love to share this because it's very value. That we always been looked at as a mistake, as I said, like all generation back to like Lot story in Middle East, what the Dead Sea is. They looked on gay people as mistake, but they little they know it is we are the healer of this world. As a human, we are our mother, our God, our source, whatever you believe in. Start creating those gay people or LGBTQ community to share love because we need to love ourselves, to love other. Like I don't see gay person like who got so much hurt from a lot of people around him because he born gay, and then he give love to others, find his family, find, as they say, like we, yes, we may be born to like a hard situation, but in the same time we were given a blessing by we can find our own family, we can create our own family. Like I am a big proof in front of you here. I came to this country, I was 25 years old. I had no idea of language, no idea of anyone. I've been in Idaho when they say it's a redneck state and they racist place. I have been living 10 years in happy and being expressed myself in so many ways because I focused on the kindness of the people and I show myself. I don't have to fight them. I just show myself. And I love this say. I always put it in my mind. If really the sun doesn't show up, like tell you, hey, I want to shine. Can you allow me to shine? She just shine. But some people can block the sun from themselves, but they can't stop the sun from shining. So really, really, we just have to shine and be like this event, the pride. Like I love when you talked, everybody fought, like Andrea talking about the clear and label, clearing ourselves, showing who we are, fighting, but not fighting by fighting like go beat someone, by being who we are, by show up, by be the example we are. Just be and look to ourselves as a blessing, not as a curse, like how everybody want to see us because they fear the love we carry with us to this world.
Thank you so much. That was so beautifully put, and just goes to the next question that I have, because so many times when we have these conversations about the state of LGBTQ plus refugee and immigrant communities, that news tends to hyper-focus solely on our negative experiences and the disparities within our communities. But can you speak a little bit more about the importance it is to uplift the celebration and the joy and the happiness within the LGBTQ plus refugee and immigrant communities, even amidst those difficult times?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like the best thing I find here, like the other week, I went to the first gay pride in Ontario, Oregon. The first gay pride, I was invited to be speaker and I shared my heart. It was a small town, but they have the seat of joy. Like the pride is not about just, I'm a pride to be gay. No, this is a pride to be yourself, whatever you are, whatever you like to be, whatever you feel you are to be. So just really to me, if anybody can focus on those simple things, like as with they talk like in 69 people killed, the transgender woman was killed or fight or punished, but today we walk with a pride, with joy. We need, I feel, to like extend this love to focus on the simple things. Like in my country I was killed, like literally almost killed in so many ways, like literally, not like just by, oh, I'm speaking my mind, my family stopped talking to me. No, like here we are in a place, it's allowed freedom. Yes, it's not perfectly 100% yet, but we can continue by focus on what was, and now we are like, as again we're back to the same, like the same subject. I didn't know the G only, or purely I didn't know the G. Now I know the whole letters of the like LGBTQA plus I, like I forget some as well. But you know what I mean? Do you see the how we grow in a way? In my own life, I see it this way. And if I want to say to anybody to like be themselves, please be yourself, because no one will be doing yourself. And also to the people who have a problem with homosexual, I will ask one question: if you are a believer of God or you don't believe in God. Like if you believe in God, do you believe God do mistakes? Just ask yourself, ask your God if does make mistakes. Or if you don't believe, for real, if you don't believe, why you care? These people live, they're living with their self. So I don't understand why the hate it is present when we just hear. If you think about on a bigger picture, we all presenting love in somehow here on this flowing rock, on this space. Like it's just the only love we have between each other. This is what's matter. Who knows what the next minute will be? Why we have to hold hate? You shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be that. Why? I don't see a reason for it. Why? But like, trust me, America way better than so many people. I'm blessed to be here for real, to be able to just share this conversation with you right now. So this is a blessing. Look on those blessings, then you will see how far we become from where we were to today.
Yes, thank you. That's so true. And I think just something that we need to continue to remind ourselves, right? Because we are surrounded by so much negativity when it comes to the public rhetoric about our community. So thank you for that reminder. I now want to turn it over to Omar Gutierrez. Welcome, Omar. I think going back to some conversations we've touched on here, but what does it look like to create safety and belonging for queer and trans immigrants and refugees?
For sure. Thank you for having me. And just like everyone else started, thank you for just making this space. I talked earlier and mentioned, not during this call, but like earlier in the day, that, you know, having and creating these type of spaces is important to give us the visibility that we need. So thank you just for inviting me and for creating the space for us to convene. So I think number one, Shadi and I could talk all day long about everything that he's mentioned, because I have a lot of opinions and I 1,000% agree with everything you've said. But it looks to me like creating safety and belonging for queer and trans immigrants and refugees. I would say the number one thing that you can do is accept them, right? And not just accept them, but also encourage them to be themselves fully, whatever that looks like, right? We're all different. So just encourage them to live their lives as themselves, encourage them to love themselves, to live for themselves, because at the end of the day, like Shadi mentioned, you know, like we're here, we're queer, like we're gonna stay, you know. So aside from accepting them and encouraging them to just be themselves fully, also create those brave spaces, right? I don't know that we can fully say it's a safe space, because at the end of the day there's triggers involved, there's things that come out, you know, that may not feel safe to someone, but it's a brave space because they're able to express themselves with you when you're creating that space for them. So just talk to us, right? Get to know us, find out what we need help with, what are our pain points, where could we use support, and then figure out what you can do to help us, right? As a famous book I like to read once said, do to others as you would have them do to you. So for you believers, that's Luke 6:31, if you're watching. So, you know, something as simple as providing reassurance to your queer friends and family, right? That they belong here, that something that small can really make a life of a difference for someone. You know, simple words make a big difference sometimes. So I would say also encourage healthy outlets. You know, as much as I like to go out to dance with my friends, you know, one too many drinks is not that great either, because alcohol is a depressant. And as much as, you know, it's a popular thing in the gay scene, it's also not the healthiest thing to be doing, you know, if you're already in not the best mental space. So encourage healthy outlets, whatever that may look like to them, right? Some people like therapy, some people don't. It's not for everyone. But if it's something that you've personally tried, or you think that your queer friends and family could benefit from it, then talk to them about it. You know, particularly I would say therapists that have experience with LGBT community members, or just queer community members in general, would be really helpful. I think, you know, again, doing kind of like a needs assessment, figuring out what your queer friends and family members need. And then figuring out, okay, this is what they need. What is my next step as an ally? What can I do? You know, what can you do after this call? If you're an ally watching this, you know, are you going to go to your friends or next time you see them and just ask them, you know, simple questions, maybe open-ended questions like, how can I support you? You know, how are you feeling in this moment? Especially if you're in Florida, you know, like, how are you feeling? I'm sure there's so much emotion there. And obviously still giving them that respect to respect an option, of course, to not answer, right? Giving them that space to just allow them to be themselves, to express what's going on in their heart and their minds. You know, like, what's heavy to you? How can I help you? Would you like to talk about anything? What do you need? You know, they're simple questions, but they make a world of a difference. And once you find out what they need, you know, what can you do? Do they need medical care? Do they need a referral to a queer-owned business? I didn't know that I was looking for a queer-owned tattoo shop until I was on a Facebook page for queer folks in Nashville, and I found this really cool tattoo shop that I'm actually going to go to on Saturday to get a tattoo. So, you know, just figuring out what are their needs? You know, what do they need? Is it medical care? Is it a queer-owned tattoo shop? Is it a queer doctor? Is it a social media page where they can find resources? You know, what can you do? I think is kind of up to you, figuring out what your person needs and then doing what you can to get them what they need. I think that answers the first question.
Yes, thank you. And I think going back to your point about healthy outlets, I think just some themes that are coming up for me as we're having these conversations is really centering our needs in our communities and really looking out for each other and building community as much as we can. That to me is like a core tenet in my feeling safe and feeling like I belong in this community. Yeah. So also another question, just before we start to wrap up, but how can we apply pressure on the current administration to take action? I know we've talked a lot about some of these bills, and folks have mentioned in their respective states that are taking place. But for you, what are some ways that you think we can apply pressure on the current administration to take action to protect our communities?
Yes. Well, I think both questions you've asked me, Melissa, are very loaded questions, and there's so many answers that can go along. But I think one is that list of answers I gave, right? That's, I guess, more so putting pressure on yourself to be an ally and support our communities. But also when it comes to adding pressure to the current administration, whether that's the Biden administration, the next one, and the next one, and the next one. If you ask me personally, I feel like I would probably encourage more than what I'm allowed to say as a representative of Turk. But speaking honestly, I think visibility makes a huge difference, right? So providing visibility, and what does visibility look like to you? What does it look like for your queer friends and family? Can you contact your council member? Is that some form of visibility? Are you having your voice heard? Are you showing up to council meetings? Are you signing petitions? Have you called your state representative? Have you registered to vote? If you're eligible, right? If you're eligible, then please register to vote and vote. Like, registering is not enough. You actually have to go out and do it. Have you actually looked at the candidates, and looked at what areas they support or what are they against? As Candelario said, queer the vote, get out to vote. I think that's one of the main powerful things that you can do. And I think that, some groups would rather us not vote and make us believe that our vote doesn't matter, when in the end it really does. And so I encourage you to, if you're eligible to vote and you haven't registered, please look up your local nonprofit or a place where you can go. If you're in Tennessee, call us up at Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. We actually have civic engagement volunteer opportunities coming up as well for the local elections where you can get involved. So if you're in Tennessee and you'd like to apply pressure here, tnimmigrant.org/volunteer. And then I will contact you about some volunteer opportunities here in Tennessee. But that's my little spiel for now.
Thank you so much, Omar. And thank you to all of our speakers. We had an amazing lineup of powerful leaders within our communities. And I think just as we begin to move forward in re-envisioning a future that fully embraces queer and trans folks, it's good to think, what are some steps we can take now to make this future a reality, right? What are some efforts in the local or national level that people can get involved with, right? And I know some were named, right? We have some actions starting from tomorrow, things that we can do today, and really also naming that we want to make sure that our lawmakers are mindful of the LGBTQ refugee and immigrant communities. We need to make sure that we are naming this action to take for the current administration, as Omar said, for future and the ones to continue coming. But before we close out, I want to open it up and see if our guests have any last remarks before we close out.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it first. Yeah, I'm going to say first that the people are here. You put amazing humans I know today that put me with more strong. And what I'm going to say is like, we're here. We don't go nowhere. So we exist. And we have to prove that. So the best thing we can do is, like you say, vote. And also we have to think in our people who are undocumented. They also can teach in another ones to they vote for us, because this is the only moment we can change this. Juntos somos más, together we are more. And again, so we are here, we don't go nowhere. Aquí estamos y de aquí no nos vamos. So that's my last remark. And I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Any other guests have any last remarks before we close out?
Yeah, I think it's definitely clear that our LGBTQ community is under attack. I mean, in 2018, we only saw 41 anti-LGBTQ bills filed across the country. Today, this year alone, we've seen over 280 bills across the country filed. Some of them thankfully stopped, but it's a clear indication that our community is under attack, right? I think the Pew survey just came out as well, showing that trans individuals, like feelings towards trans and gender nonconforming individuals, is down. So the rhetoric out there is definitely affecting us, right? But I think that the fact that we are in July and the rainbows at We Are All America have not come down is amazing, right? We're queer 365 days of the year. We're not just queer in June for 30 days, right? We're queer all year long. And sometimes the struggle's hard, but the fact that we show up is what it just makes this community amazing, resilient. And I think that we, as Andrea just mentioned, like, we are not going away. So like, we will be queer for the remaining of this year. We'll be queer for the next year. We are going to just be ourselves. And it's just, it's amazing that we're in July and the rainbows have not come down across organizations. And I greatly appreciate the fact that we continue this conversation after June, which was Pride Month, right?
Right. Thank you, Candelario. Yes, I think just kind of keeping in mind, right, we're not going anywhere. You can't legislate us out of existence, and we want to continue to show up and let people know that we're not going anywhere. Thank you. Any others that want to chime in before we close out?
Yes, please. I just want to add on, like you guys saying, we're not going anywhere. If you go back to the history, we've been centuries and centuries. Like, they try, I feel, in Arabic way, or in the Arab world, they try to deny us by the Dead Sea, by the stories of the Dead Sea or Lot, like prophet. But in reality, we are here. We really are here. We will always be here because we created to be here. It's not like I'm choosing. No, we've been created by our created house, create straight, trans, and everything, create plan and everything. We are here for a reason. So I just last thing I will say, I'm so happy and grateful because it's mean to me a lot to be part of this, like being just the voice of so many people maybe never heard. Like, think about it, like, I wish just people think how wonderful to be yourself, because I had to cross country, change language, change culture, change literally ride from right to left. This is what you think about the immigrant, how important to be yourself. Because personally, from right to left, Arabic, read right to left, now I read left to right, left to right. It's a whole change of culture, whole change just to be ourselves. And I'm not going anywhere. I will be always queer, as everybody say, and I'm so proud to be part of sharing that love. And I hope everyone can shine their self, like just be their self, shine. Doesn't matter what people will put label on ourselves. And thank you to be part of it for all of you.
No, thank you all so much, and just really appreciative of this conversation. These are really important points to bring up and just to talk about right within our own communities, and to elevate the joy, the tragedy, the complexity that it is to exist in the LGBTQ plus immigrant and refugee space. So thank you all for your insight, for sharing your experiences, your stories. We're going to close out now, but if you are interested in receiving an email follow-up with the link to this recording, as well as getting updates from us, please do sign up for our listserv. You can register by clicking in the link in the chat box down below. But thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to our amazing, wonderful, special speakers and guests, and we hope to see you all in our future Refugee Matters series. Thanks, everyone.